Welcome to Signal, the podcast that raises your frequency. I'm Maury Fontanez.
And I'm Melissa Grushka.
And today we have a very special guest. Lauren Hauser, who is an integrative nurse practitioner, is here to talk to us today. Bean, you ready?
Love it.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, ladies.
Lauren,
Hi,
welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you. We have 230 questions for you, so I hope you have a lot of time available.
And for regular listeners, I have referenced Lauren many, many times as she is my functional and all of whatever that title was, integrative nurse practitioner of health. Yes, she is mine, and I always sing your praises, always.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, before we get into it, Lauren, I think we briefed you, but we like to do a little cringe and delight moment before we start, just to catch up on the week. Sometimes Bean and I don't really talk until we're recording, so it has turned into our catch up. So who wants to go first? Anything cringy or delightful? Bean, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, mine's a little depressing. I often do things, Lauren, about the weather here because I feel like it really, it's really talks about it really informs our mood on the East Coast. Maury is blessed to be on the West Coast. She doesn't have to deal with such troubles. Anyway, my original delight was going to be that I went walking this morning with my dear friend Chelsea for her birthday. And we were walking through all the foliage. And I thought, oh, it's so beautiful here in the fall. But Maury will be really angry if I use that as my delight. So instead, I'm going to flip it and make it really depressing and discuss in detail what we discussed on our walk, which everyone here can most likely relate to, as we all have daughters, is we both have, me and my friend both have 13-year-old hormonal daughters. And we're struggling in our current status with them as we are both very triggered by this age and not knowing how to handle it. Because I think a lot of it is actually coming from our own stuff, because I was a little naughty when I was 13. My daughter is not so naughty, but I'm like constantly feeling, I've been listening to 90s music again. I'm like all in my feels about that age, and it's bringing up a lot, and it's harder to relate to them at this age than 10. And how old's your oldest, Laura?
She'll be 12 in January.
Oh, you're coming up on it, girl.
I really do believe that you get triggered back to the age that your kids are, for sure. Like memories come up when they turn that age that just were hidden and buried, and then you have to relive them, and you have to try not to parent your kids based on those experiences.
That's it. And that's what I think I might be doing, is parenting her based on my own behavior, which was a very different circumstance than what she was living in. I had a sick older sister. It was just a different vibe.
Yeah.
So I feel, and I think my friend is also having the same struggle, and it's really sad and challenging new area of parenting to navigate.
Yeah.
Wah, wah. Anyone else got?
Was that supposed to be cringy or delightful or just depressing?
Cringy and depressing. Cringy that I felt like I knocked it out of the park this whole time being a mom, and then teenagehood hit, and I was like, what? Where's the guidebook? How do I figure this out now?
Totally. Well, Lauren, what do you got for us? Hopefully it's a little more uplifting.
I was thinking about this. We do that at our dinner table. We call it high and low.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a great practice. My high would be, we just finished, finally, it took 6 months, putting in a basketball court at my house, like a half court for my girls.
Nice.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah,
outside?
It's so fun. Outside. We live 10 acres in the woods, so there's not a lot of like playground stuff.
Yeah.
So, it was a labor of love. My husband really put in a lot of work and planning.
You did it yourself?
Some of it. He put up the basketball net this weekend, which was like an 8-hour adventure, which, almost required stitches.
Oh, no.
But it was so fun. And now, like, for the last 3 days, every morning, they're like hurrying to get ready for school, to go outside and play. And it has a light on it. So when it gets dark, they're out there. And it's something that I like to do. So it's fun to be like, hey, you want to go play horse? And we'll go out and play. So I'm just excited for all the family memories that it will hopefully bring. Yeah.
Oh,
so that's definitely
so sporty.
Yes.
So sweet. All right. Well, I will tell you my cringe. This happened to me last night. We were in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, and these kids have like sharp ears. I don't think that they always do, but they sure do. And TJ was doing the dishes. My husband is TJ Lauren, and his phone buzzed, or yeah, his phone started ringing, and I picked it up, and it was his ex-wife, who is the mother of his children, and we co-parent our children together, all is well. And I say, oh, why is Quincy calling you? But I think I'm saying it like that. And my youngest from behind goes, not with the attitude, mama.
Oh,
And I'm like, I didn't have any attitude. And TJ's like, thanks, buddy. Good looking out. And I was like, I had no attitude.
well, check
But they
yourself,
both
Dean.
swear that I had a little, but I didn't. Why would I? Anyway.
I don't know. Why would you?
So that's my cringe. Just that my kid is all up in my business all the time.
But can I say, though, it's slightly a delight that he had the awareness to say, hey, and felt comfortable enough with you to say, hey, don't say it like that.
But it was, yes, absolutely. I genuinely did not think, because I didn't feel anything when I said it, but he heard it. So I'm going to take him. I'll take him at his word.
You're a good mom.
Thanks. All right. Well, listen, we have Lauren here. Let's not waste her time with this.
Right. Sorry.
Lauren, I'm going to jump in with the first question, which is just, sure. I would love for you to just describe integrative medicine and functional medicine for people who may not be as familiar with it.
Yeah. I like to say that it is a patient-focused practice. I put a lot of emphasis on the patient-provider relationship. I think that's an essential part of the healing process. And it's evidence-based. It's evidence-based complementary medicine in combination with the best of conventional. So that's why I really like the integrative piece of it, is that I'm taking the best of conventional. Ooh, your phone fell out. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That'll be one of many technical difficulties.
I know, right?
We promise. Don't you worry.
So it's the best of conventional medicine, evidence-based alternative therapies, patient-centered, and then root cause approach. We're looking at the why your body's sending you these signals and this communication versus just suppressing the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a real sort of Eastern versus Western mentality, I feel like.
Well, that's what I wanted to get into, is how so? How is, I hear what you're saying, it's patient-centered. So we're starting with the why. But what does that mean then in terms of diagnosis and treatment? How is it different? Or how is it more integrated than if you're just going to go see your general practitioner?
Yeah. I think in the Western traditional sense, you're looking for a symptom focus, you're looking for a disease state as it arises, and you're typically treating with pharmacologics and surgery.
Yeah.
Whereas an Eastern approach is really looking to optimize health and wellness. It's prevention focused, it's proactive. We're not just looking at physiologic symptoms, but we're looking at emotional health, environmental exposure, spiritual health. All of these play into that whole person. So it's not just our physical piece, but it's also those other components that make us who we are, and also how that impacts our health. It's a huge part.
Yeah.
And I think that's been drastically ignored in a lot of Western medicine. And that's why I feel like getting out of control with our health here is nobody's looking at the whole picture.
And I think there's starting to be a shift. There's certainly an awareness from, media and culture, which I think helps, but I think there's starting to be a shift of, we have to focus on the other aspects of our health. Because chronic disease is not getting better.
Right.
Did you start your career in a more traditional pathway and then move into integrative medicine? And how and why did you evolve into that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually came out of nursing school and was a NICU nurse. So I worked with little babies.
I didn't know that.
Which I loved. Loved it. Got my master's, and then I started in a primary care practice. And it was just me and the doctor. He was a bit of a cowboy. He wasn't owned by a medical system. He's still my mentor. Love him. And I got to take care of whole communities. So I was seeing, grandkids to grandparents. And I did that for 5 years. Loved it. And then I had my daughter, who my oldest is 12. And I realized the type of care that I was giving, while was very following guidelines and good quality care, was not what I would accept for my own family.
Right.
I couldn't give out another Z-Pack for a viral respiratory infection. Like, I just didn't have the tools in my toolkit to help people the way I wanted to help them. sometimes it's funny. It just takes having your own family to realize, okay, we can do better.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
started to research what else is out there. And I came across the Integrative Fellowship at the University of Arizona, Dr. Weil's program, and it just kind of clicked. So I started reaching out to providers locally who had done the fellowship. And I connected with one, and she kind of acted as a mentor for me, encouraged me to do the fellowship, and then halfway through hired me.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went from babies to, traditional primary care right into like a full functional medicine clinic,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
um, which was great experience, awesome experience. And then 6 years ago, I opened my own practice closer to home where I could, see people in my community and friends and family members and, really tailor the practice to how I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
6 years ago, that's about when I
Yes,
started. I started right
Yep.
in the beginning.
you
I'm
did.
so
You did.
honored. I'm going to
Yes.
fangirl for a minute about Dr. Weil because Dr. Weil is like, I don't even know. He's like the godfather
He
of
is.
integrative medicine. I feel like he's been around since the 90s. My family was pretty into him and all of his supplement
Mm-hmm.
packs and everything that he had in the 90s before people were really doing lots of supplements
Yep.
and enhancing your health in that way. I need you to give me a little bit. I know that's a very
Yeah.
prestigious fellowship that
Yeah.
you got with him. I don't think he just doles that out so easily. I want to know all the goods. What was it
Yeah.
like? What's he like? Are you still in touch with him? Is he
Yeah.
still an inspiration?
For sure.
Yeah.
So the fellowship was awesome because it was a 2 year, most of it was online. And then we went out to Arizona for 3 separate weeks. And it was all, I think there's probably 60 in my class, and it was all MDs, DOs, nurse practitioners, and PAs.
So
And
cool.
it was really experiential. Like the whole week was, yes, we had lectures and yes, we were going through those things, but he would bring in all the different other providers for us to experience things. So we had like a
Oh, cool.
leading researcher in mindfulness come and do a mindfulness. We had, Tai Chi practitioners come in. We had acupuncturists come in. We
Oh,
had
cool.
osteopathics come in. So we got to experience all the different modalities that we often refer to, which was super helpful. They
Awesome.
also do the whole Mediterranean diet while you're there. So they feed you, which was like
That alone is
ridiculously
such a
awesome.
treat. Yeah.
For sure. Because I think the second time I went, I was pregnant with my second. And the third time I actually brought her. She was like a baby.
Uh-uh.
Um, and I brought my sister and she kind of watched her while I did my lectures type of thing. So
So
that was
good.
awesome. He in general, the thing that impressed me the most was his memory. So
Oh,
he was in
really?
his 70s when I was doing my fellowships. I think he's in his 80s now.
He is?
And
Wow.
he would come to do a lecture, he had nothing prepared, and be like, what do we want to talk about today? And they
Uh-uh.
would, we would vote or whatever, and he'd be like medicinal mushrooms. And he would speak for an hour, like cite research, and go through all the benefits, personal experience, how to use it without saying or like, it was just amazing how
Wow.
sharp, some people are. Um, and just, evidence-based, kind, and like a visionary, really.
How great
So
to have the opportunity to learn
Seriously.
under someone like that.
it
What do
Right.
you
was.
feel like when we think about integrative medicine, does it also include things like Chinese medicine and the way that they think about energy and, the blood
Mhm.
system? Like, can you talk a little bit about, does it include Eastern modalities as well?
Sure. I think it depends on what your training is, and
Yeah.
how you practice. Um, from the integrative approach, I take probably more the patient provider relationship, the focus on the emotional health and the spiritual health. I don't have specific training in Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese medicine, so if I'm going to use those modalities, I refer out to trusted providers.
Okay.
I lean into the functional medicine approach, on kind of the more pathophysiologic side, where I'm looking at systems. What's going on with our microbiome and our gut health? How is our nervous system affected? What's going on endocrine wise? What's going on mitochondrial wise? And really do some advanced assessments, testing, history to get an idea of how all those systems are interacting and could be at play.
I mean, for the record, when I started with her, she was asking me like, what cleaning products are you using at home? I mean, really, really detailed minutia to really get an understanding of me as a whole patient.
Whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some things, I'm so curious, like, what are some things you've seen that we sort of misdiagnose or misunderstand? Like, what's a common ailment that is actually attributed to one of those other systems, like your gut health or your mitochondrial health, that we don't think about holistically when we're just have a headache or whatever it might be?
Well, I can use your headache example. That's
Okay,
a
great.
good one. So headaches can be so multifactorial. So things that I always assess when someone presents with a headache is one, nutrient deficiencies. Magnesium is a common nutrient deficiency. About 30 to 40% of the population is low in magnesium. And it's because our soil is depleted. Even if you're buying really high quality food, the content and the amount of magnesium that's in it is lower than what it was in the past.
Interesting.
So, looking for nutrient deficiencies to see if that's a potential cause. So magnesium, and then B vitamins and zinc also play a role in something called methylation, which can be altered or off if you don't have those nutrients and can cause headaches. So I would look at nutrients. I would also look at hormones. Certainly some menstrual hormones can affect
problems.
Oh yeah,
Hormones.
can affect headaches. As well as blood sugar regulation, which is hormonal as well. And then your adrenal or your stress hormones, looking at cortisol and DHEA to see if they impact headaches. And then I go down, I always am looking at gut as well as a foundational piece. Are you reacting to foods? Is that part of it too? So I would explore all those areas with patients in both, asking questions and also potentially testing those things to see if they are root cause for the headaches.
Lauren is the one who determined that I was gluten intolerant, which completely shifted my entire life, my entire way of living, my entire way of feeling. Like I had lived, I think, with such chronic internal inflammation for so long that I didn't know outside of it. And she finally diagnosed me as gluten intolerant, and I got off, and I'm like I guess what normal people feel like all the time now. And it still is shocking because I lived so much of my life in that state of pain.
What's the biggest thing you've noticed is different now that you've taken gluten out?
Me?
Yeah.
Definitely pain levels and exhaustion levels. It helped a lot with energy. I mean, I'm tired all the time because of other things, but it definitely helped with energy. And I had chronic back pain my entire life. And I have a lot of disc issues in my back. I have a lot of physical ailments, but they're exacerbated. And now when I do cheat a little and have a little gluten at a meal, I will see within that week, I get sore again.
Yeah.
My low back starts to hurt. My knee starts to hurt, things that aren't normally bothering me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not uncommon. I mean, I think when we think about gluten intolerance, the first thing we think about is GI upset.
Yeah.
But to be honest,
Well,
most of my patients have more of the brain fog fatigue with gluten and the pain than they do
stomach.
True GI ups. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, you just mentioned the spiritual side, which you and I actually have never really gone into. I'm curious what you mean by that and how you factor that into people's overall health. I agree with it. I'm just curious how you in particular do it.
Yeah, I think I look at it in two ways, looking to make sure the person has meaning and purpose in their life. We know having those two things be forefront of mind and a factor in driving decision making makes you healthier overall, leads to a happier, healthier life. And the other piece would be mind-body practices. I talk to all my patients about mind-body practices, and that can be, I have patients that are very religious, and that's a prayer practice. And I have patients that are more spirituality-based, and that's journaling, that's mindfulness, that's meditation. So incorporating some sort of mind-body practice where you're checking in with yourself, where you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, is just essential for well-being. And it makes go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought.
I was going to say, it makes all the other treatment pieces work better.
Yeah.
Totally.
We have talked on this show a lot about just the way that stress and trauma affects our physical health. Can you talk a little bit about the parasympathetic nervous system?
Sure.
Like, what do we need to know about that system and how it affects us both emotionally and physically?
Sure. So the autonomic nervous system has two branches. It has the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. we're all very familiar with what the sympathetic state feels like. That is our fight or flight. Blood flow is diverted away from our GI tract and our reproductive organs, and it goes to our heart and our brain and our muscles to fight the perceived stressors. And it is a chemical response. And it's necessary, right? Like if a car is coming at us, we need to be able to jump out of the way.
Right.
The problem is it's an evolutionary process that maybe no longer serves us the way that our body's using it now. So we have the same chemical response if a tiger's in the room or if we're late for our Zoom meeting.
I
Is
know
the
that.
problem.
I feel it.
Yeah, you feel that, right? And so we have this rush of adrenaline, we have this rush of cortisol. And when that happens, yes, we're more focused and yes, we're stronger, but the other systems that need that blood flow tend to suffer. So chronic elevation of that sympathetic place can lead to chronic cortisol, which can cause inflammation, it can cause weight gain, it can shift metabolic states, it can mess your hormones up, and it can cause dysregulation or dysbiosis in your GI tract. So that's sympathetic.
That's me.
Yeah, it's all of us, right? Our whole world is so sympathetic driven. From like social media to the news, everything's trying to hit that fight or flight response.
It's working.
It's working for sure. The flip side of that is the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is rest, digest, heal, reproduce. So when we are in the parasympathetic place, we are relaxed. Blood flow goes into our digestive tract. It goes into our reproductive organs. Our body's natural healing mechanisms are able to turn on. We have a whole system of healing internally that needs to be accessed, and it's literally shut off when we're in that sympathetic place. So it elicits all those types of physiologic responses in our body. But we have to practice it. We have to practice getting in the parasympathetic state because of the world we live in now.
That was going to be my question is how does one, because we're all, like you said,
we're
in
all
the
there.
state.
Yeah.
How do we more proactively allow time for our bodies to be in that parasympathetic state?
Yeah. I mean, we have to find a practice that we identify with that we can do consistently. And I always say the mind body umbrella is large, and it can be a lot of different things. And oftentimes it means trying different modalities to find what's a good fit. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time too. I think that's a misnomer. I'm not asking you to sit in a lotus position and meditate for an hour. If you could do that, great, good for you. I wish I was like that. But I'm like, can we get 5 minutes a day? Even if you're like hiding in the bathroom from your kids, can we do a breathing exercise? Can we listen to loving kindness meditation? Can we do a gentle yoga practice? Like, what can we do a prayer service if that's your jam, or can we do a journaling? Like, we got to do something to elicit that parasympathetic response so that all the hard work, all the good food you're eating, the exercise, the things that you're putting in all this time, effort, and resources can work as well as we need them to be.
Can I ask you what you do? Oh, sorry. Can I ask what you do, what your practice is?
Yeah. So my professor during my fellowship was Dr. Shauna Shapiro. And she's amazing. She has the best voice too. I know if you ever listen to things that so matters. And she has a great book called Good Morning, I Love You, which I'm not crazy about the title, but especially when I'm like referring it to my male patients, they're like, okay, come on. But it's pretty much like what you practice grows stronger is the message. So if you practice being calm and loving and kind, that will grow, that muscle will grow. So she has a couple loving kindness meditations on her website and on YouTube that I love. So that's a go-to for me. I also love the 4-7-8 breath.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's one that Dr. Wild teaches everybody. And I've seen that do crazy things. Like when I was in primary care, I've had patients, when I would do blood draws, that would pass out every time. And I would guide them through that breath work while the phlebotomist was doing it, and like they wouldn't pass out. Like crazy stuff where it's like it really does work.
Calm your nerves. Yeah.
Calm your nerves. Yeah. And then I like gratitude journals. I have like the 5-minute journal, which takes again 2 minutes a day. I do it in my sauna.
I want a sauna.
That's helpful. Yeah, I love my sauna.
What's the science behind? We've done an episode on gratitude, but I'd love to hear your perspective on why does a gratitude journal help so much with the parasympathetic?
Yeah, I think it's because we're focusing on the positive, right? Like even when I was prepping for our interview today and I was like, okay, what's my what do you call it? Not cringe, what's the other one?
Delight,
Delight.
delight.
Delay. Okay. I was going through the day yesterday being like, oh, that could be it. That's delightful. Oh, that could be it. That's delightful. And if you're focusing on the good, you're reinforcing the neuronal connection of that positive pathway. So it's that neuroplasticity of our brain. And we know that we can elicit positive neurotransmitters and, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine by just thinking about positive events. So it really does affect our brain
Yeah.
chemistry.
Yeah. The power of the mind.
What
Yeah.
do you say when, I think I get this question, or I hear this question a lot when I like hear about functional integrative medicine, like this misnomer that, let's say
Yeah.
you're diagnosed with cancer, and people will, talk about how there's a woo-woo way of treating it,
Yeah.
and then there's the medical way. That's not what this is. This is about integrating medicine with these other things. Can you talk a little bit about, like, if you have a serious medical diagnosis,
Yep.
um, what are you suggesting is an integrative approach to something that is,
Yeah.
foundationally serious to your health?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think you partly answered it there, and that it is an integrative approach. I'm never asking patients to choose conventional or integrative. Like the goal
Right.
is to do both and to work together and collaborate, particularly in serious things like cancer or if you break a leg, like please get conventional care. Like they
Just
excel
eat
in
a
those areas,
Mediterranean diet and
right?
your
Like
leg
it's
will heal.
right. And actually, that's one of the things that I really like about my practice and my training is that I'm conventionally trained. I went to Jefferson. I'm a nurse practitioner. I can prescribe, I can order labs, I can interpret them, so that I'm not missing something that needs a different level of care or a specialist referral because I'm familiar with kind of the warning signs of things that need more attention. But it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can take a medication and you can also do things that support your immune system, like,
Right.
eat probiotic foods, increase your fiber, add a probiotic, look at colostrum. So it's about supporting your body through those things. And sometimes that means medication and it means lifestyle, supplementation, diet changes, exercise. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It
Right.
can and should be both.
Love that. Love that. Um, I had a couple questions. One, I don't know if you can even answer this. If you can
Sure.
give like 3 tips that you think are the most vital for well-being.
Okay. Yeah. Sleep.
Oh,
Mm.
yes. So bad. I'm doing so badly at that right now.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Sleep
I
is a big one.
agree.
So, avoiding your phones half an hour to an hour before bed, avoiding computers that they're, that is super helpful.
Yes.
Can you
Um,
say, sorry, Lauren,
yeah,
people hear that and they're like, sure, and then they don't do it. Can you
I know.
say why? Why does
Sure.
that matter?
Two big reasons. One, the blue light in a device, any screen, signals to your brain that it's morning time.
Right.
So here you are on this screen, laying in
Right.
bed, about to go to sleep, and telling your brain it's morning, and then you shut it off, and you're like, "Oh, I can't sleep." Duh. So that's one piece. The other piece is, as we mentioned before, like social media, news, like they're all sympathetically driven. It's
Right.
they're trying to clickbait you and grab you in by eliciting a strong emotional response. So those are not relaxing or soothing at a
No.
time when you're trying to shut your mind off or slow down those kind of loopy thoughts and try and go to sleep. So I realize an hour is a lot. So I usually start patients like, can you do 20 minutes? Like, can we take
Yeah.
like a hot shower before we go to bed? Can we listen to a yoga nidra? Can we do a journal? Can we even like talk to our partner or our spouse or something that's just not screen related?
Yeah.
Let's start with 15, 20 minutes and then see where you can work up from there. And then caffeine in the afternoon can be a factor for some people.
Yeah. Me. I can't drink
Yeah.
after 2. I've like learned that if I
Yeah.
cross the 2 o'clock marker, I have trouble falling asleep.
Yeah. And then alcohol. And it's really cruel because women and alcohol, as we get older, I'm the daughter of a wine salesman. So this comes from a place
Fun.
of like, it's a hard one. But even like 1 or 2 glasses of wine will disrupt your sleep significantly, especially as we get older.
What about if we day drink?
Right?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a time
Right.
cutoff to that wine
Yeah.
drinking?
So,
What's the
things
best?
that help is, earlier in the evening and with food.
Wait,
Okay.
later in the evening or earlier?
No, earlier and with food.
With food. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Not
But
as
then it
fun,
fills you
but
up. Yeah, less fun.
I know. It's less fun.
Fine,
I know.
Lauren. I'm bored,
You
but
know what
fine.
maybe you're about to say it, but my functional medicine doctor drills me on this one is water. Like, can you just talk about the importance of water in our well-being?
Well, I think there's several pieces to that. One is the quality of your water, right? So
Mm.
making sure you're drinking water that's safe. So I would recommend either getting it tested or having a filtration system in. Obviously, not drinking out of plastic. Those are, there's a safety factor to that. Then it's quantity, and I think that varies among individuals and medical conditions, but generally getting a solid amount of water is helpful, not only to regulate appetite, to prevent headache, things like that. And then the last piece would be electrolytes. I'm a big fan of electrolytes. I think if we drink a shit ton of water with no electrolytes, we just pee a lot.
That's right. That's why I hate doing it.
I love doing
it. It interrupts my day.
Yeah. And we don't typically feel super hydrated.
Right.
But if we add electrolytes, whether it's natural electrolytes, like adding a little diluted coconut water or a pinch of Himalayan sea salt, or we use a company that, doesn't have a lot of crap in it, that tends to make you feel hydrated without having to consume copious amounts of water.
That's a really good tip.
I get water delivery from like Poland Spring or whatever I get. Is that not healthy because it comes in those huge plastic gallons?
I mean, it's probably better than drinking unfiltered, like well water. So it's kind of like I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Apparently I have little ears.
little small ear holes.
Yeah. Who knew?
Wait, so what would be your ultimate best water situation? My yoga studio has this like triple filtered like hydros. I don't even know what it is, but it's amazing. I want that.
I have a reverse osmosis system with a remineralizer, which isn't as expensive as you think because it's just under my sink. So we just use it for drinking and cooking water. It's like a couple $100. And we have a well, so we get it tested once a year for bacteria and things like that. But, we know that we're not getting it because we have this reverse osmosis. And then it has a remineralizer on it because reverse osmosis removes everything. So we want to put the minerals back in. Berkey is a good option. And they actually make over the counter, like almost like a Brita reverse osmosis system now. So
cool.
That's a good one. And I think it's the best tasting water. Like my friends always fill up their water bottles before they leave my house.
It's like your party favor.
Right. Like we just
you gotta go over there and get your water bean.
Yeah, right.
I know. I might come over with a couple jugs, not plastic.
Go for it.
And also change that filter. I feel like sometimes you put the thing in and you think you can set it and forget it, but you have to change your water filter for it to have the effect. Yeah. Wait, did you have another question?
No, we got off track.
Sleep, right? We got sleep as one.
We were asking for three of like your biggest, if you could walk away with any three of your biggest. Sleep is number one.
Sleep is one, or in the top three at least. Exercise.
Yeah.
We have to move our body.
I failed. I'm out.
We have to move our body. Yeah. So, and there's two ways to go about this. I think getting those activities of daily living, just steps, movement, standing desks, walking around, doing little exercise snacks every hour, doing 10 squats, things like that.
I thought you meant exercise to go get a snack. I was like, love that.
You could do that too. Yes.
Jumping jacks to the pantry.
Exercise. Yeah. I like that. That works. We got to move our bodies. The second piece is strength, especially as women. We need to lift heavy things. We need to do so safely, but we need to progressively lift heavy things in order to not only stay mobile as we age, which is a real concern for women with osteoporosis and arthritis, which is higher in us than men. But also to stay metabolically healthy. We know that muscle is an endocrine organ, and the more healthy muscle we have on board, the more metabolically fit we're going to be. The less diabetes we're going to have, the less insulin resistance, the less fatty liver, the less weight we're going to put on. So exercise is like a non-negotiable. We have to do it.
You heard that, Bean? It's a
I
non-negotiable.
hear it. I
Wait,
know
but
I need
I
to
don't
do
want
it.
to strength train. No, I do want to strength train. I just don't
Yeah.
even know what to do. I just like my yoga and like going for walks. I'm like a real 42-year-old woman. A good walk always does
those
it
are
for me.
both. I think nothing is not made better by a walk. There are very few things that don't get better when you have a walk. I feel the same way about a hot shower or a tub too.
Oh, nice.
But
And at least you're moving your body.
you're
And I'm
moving
sure
your
it helps to
body
prepare a sympathetic nervous system.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay,
And
so
you can
we've
start
got.
slow. Start with body weight. Start with bands. You don't have to go to
That's why I love
bench
Lauren.
press and bars.
She is always makes everything so approachable. You never have, even when I got off gluten, when I lived on gluten, you were like, just start for a couple weeks. I was like, okay, I could do it a few weeks. And then I did it. You were like, why don't you, if you feel okay, why don't you do it a little bit more? I was like, okay, I will. It's like baby steps for adults.
It is. I think that's one of the things that I really pride myself on is trying to meet the person where they are.
Yes. You do such a great job.
And you really have to, and that's where that patient provider relationship comes in. Like you have to get to know the person.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you need experience too. But I could come in hot and give you 20 things to do, an elimination diet, and you do that. But if you're not ready for that,
Yeah.
You won't receive it.
Exactly. So you have to meet the person where they're at and give them and see. And I over time, and I think it's probably just years of practice, I've kind of gotten pretty good at being like, okay, they're ready for some baby steps.
Yeah.
This person's ready for something bigger.
Yeah.
And trying to do that.
It's awesome.
All right. So sleep, exercise. What's your third?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I think nutrition, obviously.
Agreed.
A couple pieces of this. I think everyone in their lifetime should do an elimination diet at some point, unless you have like a history of a severe eating disorder or something like that, where we want to be super mindful. But I think it's helpful to see if you're reacting to any foods. It's also a treatment in that process too, because you're avoiding foods that typically aren't great for you and putting in really healthy foods.
Right.
And it forces you to be super mindful.
What if you were going to start an elimination diet? What would you recommend people start eliminating?
So the standard elimination diet is gluten, dairy, corn, soy, eggs, and peanuts.
All at once?
Yeah, for 30 days.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
For how long?
So that's a big ask for 30 days. And then you reintroduce them one at a time. So I would say if you're going to try something, I find in my patients, usually it's gluten or dairy are the top issues.
Yeah.
So I would start with one of them.
I see. Yeah, I could see doing gluten and dairy. I think when you get into corn and eggs, it's like, no, it starts to really limit your what you can eat. And I think the other thing for me that I'm always mindful of is like cultural foods.
Yes.
And what is important to keep in mind. Like I'm Persian and I know during the whole carb craze, it was like rice was evil. And I'm like, duh, that's all we eat is rice.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, I wonder, how does that play into an elimination diet when it's culturally like, that's one of the foods that is in your, ingredients.
I run into that a lot. And that's why it has to be individual care. It can't just be I don't do blanket protocols because people are not protocols. They're individual. They have individual. And I actually have a lot of patients who practice fasting because of their religion or have to avoid certain things during certain times of the year. And you really have to, get creative and you have to troubleshoot. I like that challenge of it, but you have to do an individual approach because it's not going to work. It doesn't work if you don't.
Totally.
Yeah.
My son's in a phase right now where he's, quote, only eating halal. By the way, we're not Muslim, but he has decided that he's only eating halal. Yeah. And the other day he was eating a pepperoni pizza and I was like, that's pork, which is not halal. And he's like, it's okay today. I go, okay, you're choosing your
I like his rule.
your halal diet. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Lauren, can I ask you, wait, Bean, you said you had 2 questions. Did you have another one before I get to the final question that I have? Or did you ask
I forget because I brain fog.
Okay. I want to know, what are you excited about in terms of where our collective consciousness is going with functional medicine and integrative medicine? Like, what are you seeing happening for us as people based on accepting more of this integrative approach?
Yeah. I think 2 things. I think one, there's been a huge cultural shift in patient advocacy, in researching for yourself, in asking about other options and getting full informed consent of what your options are. That's been a big shift. I remember when I first started in functional medicine, I used to have like a little elevator speech that I used to give all the time because no one knew what the hell it was.
Right.
Even when I first became a nurse practitioner, I used to have to explain what that was. And then, a couple years later, everyone knew what that was.
Right.
And then, when functional medicine, it was like, okay, I have to explain this all the time. And now people totally know what it is. So there's definitely a huge awareness there, which is pretty cool to see. So I think the patient self-advocacy is huge. I love that. The other piece I'm really excited about and I'm really into right now is peri and postmenopausal care.
Yes.
We need a whole
thank you
episode on
for
that.
saying- yes, because I
Yes.
wanted to ask you about that.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. So I actually, I'm a member of the Menopause Society. I'm taking my test to be a certified practitioner at the end of this month. So I'm deep into studying, which is
Perfect.
fun for me. I haven't done that in a long time. So I'm really excited about having options and information and accessibility for women in the second stage of life where we've been freaking ignored and lied to
Completely.
pretty much.
Well, what's the stat? Do you know, Lauren, the stat in
Mhm.
terms of funding for medical research for women versus men?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And
It's
women
like
aren't
5% in
yeah.
comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not small men. So what
Yeah,
has been done
exactly.
historically is that
Right.
they just include men in clinical trials because they don't have to account for hormonal cycles and things
Right.
like that. And they're just like, oh, we'll just apply it. Women are small men. We'll just apply the same things. And that's not true. And we know
Yeah.
that now. And, things like statins don't affect women the same way. And we just don't have data on women themselves. And that's starting to shift slowly, but shifting
And it's such a
nonetheless.
huge hormonal, like during your pregnancy, you are completely supported. You're being seen every minute because your hormones are going here and there. And then perimenopause comes and everyone's
Yeah.
like, no one even talks about it.
No,
I even talked to my gyno who was lovely and said, I think I'm perimenopausal. And he goes, you are. And I was like, okay, that was
Now
sort of
what?
it.
Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, could you help
now
me
what do
figure
I
out what to
guidance.
do?
Can you tell me what's going to happen? Can we have a conversation what my options are? Like,
Right.
how is this going to affect me?
Well, they don't know.
That's
the
the
problem.
problem. Well, now she knows.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's not because the information's not there. The information's there. We know what estrogen does and how that affects us systemically, not just hot flashes and night sweats. I mean, we know it affects our joints and it affects our brain and it affects our GI system or GU system, and it affects our sex drive. I mean, it affects every part of our
Everything.
body. Exactly.
Thank God I have you to support me through this.
Oh,
I'm
here.
so happy for you, Bean. And then you can just give me the information Lauren gives
For
you.
sure. We'll just pass it along. Love it. Love it.
I'll have her do an email format so I can forward it along.
So you could just forward it along.
Yeah. Lauren, if our listeners are interested in learning more from you, where might they find you?
Sure. So I think I have an Instagram, although I'm not very active on that. So I'm very lucky that my practice is pretty much all word of mouth and referrals, which is great. So I have a practice in New Hope, Pennsylvania. So my website is centralbucksim.com, and that's the best way to kind of connect. My email's on there. My admin's email's on there.
Great.
And you do a lot of virtual appointments. You do a lot of virtual.
I do.
So
if someone lives in Pennsylvania, I can see them virtually. If you're in another state, they have to come in person for the initial visit.
Oh, wow.
So if you're in another state, look for a good functional medicine doctor.
And there are two websites that are helpful.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So the IFM, the IFM, which is Institute of Functional Medicine, where I've done a lot of training, they have a Find a Practitioner website.
Oh, that's great.
You can search by zip code. And then actually the fellowship, the University of Arizona, while Integrative Center has a Find a Practitioner link as well.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then so does the Menopause Society.
We will pop those two links in our show notes for you listeners in case you want to include this, which I couldn't recommend more highly. I think Melissa has more experience with, seeing you, Lauren, but even for me, seeing my functional medicine doctor and just the supplements she's added in, and making sure the D vitamins are at the right, like I feel more energetic and less lethargic than ever before. And she solved it for me. It wasn't going to my general practitioner that did it. So I highly recommend including something like this into your overall health system for sure. Lauren, thank you
Agreed.
for taking the time with us today.
Thank you.
This was so informative. I feel like
So
we got a
informative.
lot of tangible takeaway tools, as Melissa likes to
Love
say.
that.
Exactly right.
So thank you. Thank you so
You are
much.
so
And
welcome.
guys,
Thank you, Lauren.
thank you
for
for
having me.
listening. We will be back again next week with another episode of Signal. See you then. Bye.
Bye.